The warning lights flashed red across the bridge of the mining ship New Busan. Captain Dongmin stared at the strange readings on his screen. Something big was out there in the empty space between stars. "What do you think it is?" asked Ji-hoon, wiping grease from his hands with an old rag. He had been fixing the air recycling system again. The 28-year-old engineer always seemed to be fixing something on their old ship. "Don't know," Dongmin said. "But it's not moving. Could be a derelict ship." Ji-hoon looked at the scanner data. The object was huge, much bigger than their small mining vessel. Its design was unlike anything in human databases. Smooth curves and strange materials that seemed to bend light around them. "Should we check it out?" Ji-hoon asked. "Regulations say we should report it and move on," Dongmin replied. But his curiosity was getting the better of him. "But we're 3 weeks from the nearest station. By the time help arrives, whatever's out there might be gone." They moved closer. The ship was beautiful in a way that made human technology look crude. But something was wrong. Pieces of debris floated around it, and part of its hull was cracked open. Life signs reported their ship's computer in its flat voice. One individual detected oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere escaping from hull breach. "Someone's alive in there," Ji-hoon said. "We have to help them." "We don't know what they are," Dongmin warned. "Could be dangerous. Could be dying," Ji-hoon shot back. He was already suiting up for a spacewalk. "I'm going over there." "That's crazy. We don't have proper docking equipment for a ship that size." "Then I'll improvise." 20 minutes later, Ji-hoon floated through space toward the alien vessel. His magnetic boots clanked against the strange hull material. Up close, he could see the damage was serious. Whatever had happened here, it had been violent. He found an airlock that was partially open. The mechanism was completely foreign, but Ji-hoon had always been good at figuring out how things worked. After 10 minutes of careful study, he managed to cycle through into the ship. The interior took his breath away. Everything glowed with soft light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The corridors were wide and graceful, decorated with flowing patterns that hurt to look at directly. Following his scanner, Ji-hoon found the life sign in what looked like a laboratory. A figure in a form-fitting silver suit lay unconscious near a bank of damaged equipment. The person looked almost human, but taller and thinner, with pale blue-white skin and longer limbs. The alien's eyes opened as Ji-hoon approached. They were large and completely black, showing no white at all. For a moment, both beings froze, staring at each other. "Are you hurt?" Ji-hoon asked, knowing the alien probably couldn't understand him. The alien said something in a musical language that sounded like singing. Then, to Ji-hoon's surprise, she spoke in accented but clear English. "You are human?" Her voice was soft and precise. "Yes, I'm Ji-hoon." "Are you injured?" "I am called Nari. My ship's power core has failed. The atmosphere will be gone in perhaps 6 of your hours." Ji-hoon looked around at the sophisticated equipment. "Can't you fix it?" "The repair requires replacement components we do not carry. The damage is too severe for field repairs." "Let me take a look." Nari watched in fascination as the human examined her ship's systems. His approach was completely different from anything she had been taught. Instead of running detailed diagnostics and consulting technical manuals, he seemed to understand the machinery through touch and intuition. "Your species is listed as pre-warp primitives," she said, more to herself than to him. "Pre-warp?" Ji-hoon looked up from a control panel he had opened. "We've had faster-than-light travel for 15 years. Impossible. Our surveys indicated you had barely achieved orbital flight. Your surveys are out of date." Ji-hoon grinned. "Lucky for you, this pre-warp primitive might be able to save your life." He worked for 3 hours, jury-rigging connections and bypassing damaged systems with spare parts from his own equipment. Nari watched every move, taking detailed mental notes. The human solutions were crude but effective. Where Velthari engineering was elegant and precise, human engineering was adaptable and robust. "There," Ji-hoon said finally. "That should give you life support for a few days. But your main drive is dead. You'll need a ride. A ride. To the nearest station. My ship isn't much to look at, but she'll get us there." Nari hesitated. Traveling with an unknown species violated numerous protocols, but staying here meant certain death. "I accept your offer," she said formally. Getting Nari and her essential equipment to the New Busan took another 4 hours. Captain Dongmin nearly choked when he saw their passenger. "That's a Velthari," he whispered to Ji-hoon. "Do you know what they are?" They're like the emperors of this part of the galaxy. They think every other species is dirt under their feet. But Nari didn't act like an emperor. She was polite, curious, and surprisingly helpful. She shared her knowledge of local space hazards and even helped Jihoon optimize their ship's power systems. During the 3-week journey to Kepler Station, Jihoon and Nari spent hours talking. She was amazed by human adaptability and emotional range. He was fascinated by her vast knowledge and different perspective on the universe. "Your species puzzles me," she admitted one evening as they shared dinner. "Our databases describe humans as violent and unpredictable." "We can be," Jihoon said honestly. "But we're also loyal, creative, and protective of those we care about." Care about? Friends, family, people we love. Nari was quiet for a long moment. Love was not a concept the Velthari discussed openly. Their society valued logic and emotional control above all else. "Do you have someone you love?" she asked carefully. "Not yet," Jihoon smiled. "But I'm hoping I will someday." Something in his tone made Nari's heart beat faster. The Velthari had 2 hearts and both were racing now. She told herself it was just the stress of her situation, but deep down she knew it was something else. As Kepler Station grew larger on their screens, both Jihoon and Nari felt an unexpected sadness. Their time together was ending. Soon she would return to Velthari space and he would go back to his mining roots. "Thank you," she said as they prepared to dock. "You saved my life." "Maybe you saved mine too," he replied. Neither of them understood what he meant by that. Not yet. 3 days at Kepler Station changed everything. Nari had planned to catch the next transport back to Velthari space, but something was wrong with her body. She felt tired, dizzy, and strangely emotional. Dr. Minji, the station's chief medical officer, ran the scans twice before she believed the results. "This is impossible," the human doctor said, staring at her screens. "According to every biological study we've done, humans and Velthari can't reproduce together. Your genetic structures are too different." Nari sat on the examination table, her black eyes wide with shock. "But the scans show a healthy fetus, about 2 weeks along. And it's definitely a hybrid." Jihoon stood in the corner of the medical bay looking like someone had hit him with a wrench. "Are you sure? I mean, completely sure?" "DNA doesn't lie," Dr. Minji said. "This baby has genetic markers from both species. If it develops normally, it could have human adaptability combined with Velthari intelligence and longevity." Nari's hands shook as she processed the information. In Velthari society, contamination with primitive genetic material was considered a crime against their pure bloodline. She would face exile at best, execution at worst. "I need to contact my people," she said quietly. "Maybe that's not a good idea right now," Jihoon suggested. "I have no choice. They will expect a report on my rescue and return." The conversation with Velthari Command went exactly as badly as Nari had feared. Taewon, her colleague and former research partner, appeared on the communication screen with barely controlled horror. "Contamination," he repeated. "Nari, do you understand what you've done? You've violated the species purity laws. The Council is demanding your immediate return for decontamination procedures." Decontamination procedures was a polite term for something much worse. Nari knew that if she returned now, both she and her unborn child would be eliminated. "I need time to think," she said. "There is no time. A military transport is already en route to collect you. You have 48 hours. The communication ended, leaving the medical bay in heavy silence. "What are decontamination procedures?" Jihoon asked, though he suspected he didn't want to know the answer. "They will remove the pregnancy and then modify my genetics to ensure this can never happen again," Nari said. "I will no longer be myself. Like hell they will." Jihoon's voice was flat and dangerous. "Nobody's going to hurt you or our baby." "Our baby?" Nari looked at him with surprise. "Did I say something wrong?" "No, it's just Velthari males don't usually claim responsibility for offspring. Reproduction is considered a scientific process, not a personal one." Jihoon sat down beside her. "Well, I'm not Velthari, and this baby is half human. That makes it family." Dr. Minji had been quietly working at her terminal during their conversation. "I might have found something," she said. "I've been researching Velthari law. There's an old provision, probably forgotten, about interspecies reproduction." She turned her screen toward them. "According to Article 847 of the ancient codes, if a Velthari carries the offspring of another species, That species must be formally evaluated for citizenship potential before any action can be taken. What does that mean? Ji-hoon asked. It means they can't touch Nari until they decide whether humans are worthy of joining galactic civilization, Dr. Minji explained. And that decision requires the trials of worthiness. Nari's face went pale. The trials haven't been used in over 300 years. They were designed to be impossible for primitive species. Maybe, Ji-hoon said, but I'm not exactly primitive, am I? I saved your life when your advanced technology couldn't. The trials aren't just about technology. They test intelligence, physical ability, cultural understanding, and emotional control. They're designed to prove Velthari superiority. Then maybe it's time someone proved them wrong. For the next day, they researched everything they could about the trials. The records were ancient and incomplete, but the basic structure was clear. 5 tests that examined different aspects of worthiness. No non-Velthari species had ever passed. This is insane, Nari said as they reviewed the data. Even if you somehow manage to pass the trials, my family will never accept a human. Let me worry about your family, Ji-hoon replied. Right now we need to focus on keeping you and the baby safe. Captain Dong-min found them in the station's archives that evening. I've been talking to the other crew members, he said. We all agree. Whatever you decide to do, you won't be doing it alone. This isn't your fight, Nari said. Ji-hoon's one of us. That makes it our fight. Dong-min sat down with them. Besides, I've been hauling rocks around this sector for 20 years. It's about time I did something important. The Velthari transport arrived exactly on schedule. Commander Yunji, a stern woman with silver hair and cold eyes, came aboard with a full squad of soldiers. Research Specialist Nari, she said formally. You will return with us immediately for medical evaluation. I invoke Article 847 of the Ancient Codes, Nari replied, her voice steady despite her fear. I carry the offspring of a species that has not been evaluated for civilization status. The trials of worthiness must be completed before any medical procedures can be performed. Commander Yunji's eyes narrowed. The trials haven't been invoked in centuries, but they remain law, Ji-hoon said, stepping forward. And I volunteer to undergo them. You? A human? The commander looked at him like he was something unpleasant on her boot. Do you have any idea what you're suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe your people have been wrong about humans. Maybe it's time you found out just how wrong. The standoff continued for several tense minutes. Finally, Commander Yunji activated her communicator and spoke rapidly in Velthari. The response came back just as quickly. The High Council has agreed to hear your petition, she said. You will be transported to Ethros Prime to face the trials. But know this, human. When you fail, both you and your contaminated offspring will be eliminated. When I succeed, Ji-hoon replied calmly, I expect an apology. As they prepared to leave Kepler Station, Dr. Minji pulled Ji-hoon aside. Are you sure about this? From what I've read, these trials are designed to be lethal. I'm sure, Ji-hoon said. That baby is counting on me. Nadi is counting on me, and maybe it's time the galaxy learned that humans don't give up when things get tough. Just be careful. And remember, you're not just representing yourself. You're representing all of humanity. No pressure at all, Ji-hoon grinned. But as he watched Nari board the Velthari transport, her face pale but determined, he knew he would face anything to keep her and their child safe. The journey to Ethros Prime would take 2 weeks. 2 weeks to prepare for trials that no non-Velthari had ever survived. 2 weeks to get ready to prove that humanity deserved a place among the stars. Ji-hoon cracked his knuckles and started planning. He had some studying to do. Ethros Prime was the most beautiful thing Ji-hoon had ever seen. The Velthari homeworld floated in space like a jewel, covered in crystal cities that rose through the clouds into orbit. Spires of living light twisted between floating platforms, and the entire planet seemed to glow with its own inner fire. Impressive, isn't it? Nari said softly as their transport approached the capital city. Yeah, Ji-hoon replied. Makes Earth look pretty rough around the edges. Different doesn't mean better, she said, surprising him. I've learned that recently. The family home was even more intimidating than the planet. A crystal spire that floated 3 miles above the city, connected to the ground by streams of energy that served as elevators. Everything was smooth, clean, and perfect in a way that made Ji-hoon feel like a caveman. Nari's father, Hyunwoo, was waiting in the main chamber. He was tall even for a Velthari, with silver hair and eyes like black ice. His presence filled the room like a physical force. So, he said, looking at Jihoon like something that had crawled out of a drain. "This is the primitive that has contaminated my daughter." "Father," Nari warned. "I am Hyunwoo, High Arbiter of the Velthari Council," he continued, ignoring her. "And you, human, are about to discover the price of reaching above your station." "Nice to meet you too," Jihoon said. "I'm Jihoon. Thanks for having me over for dinner." The casual response clearly wasn't what Hyunwoo had expected. Velthari protocols demanded formal speeches and elaborate shows of respect. Jihoon's simple friendliness was like a glitch in the system. Nari's mother, Suyung, emerged from what looked like a laboratory. She was elegant and cold, examining Jihoon like he was a particularly interesting bacteria. "Fascinating," she murmured. "The genetic compatibility should have been impossible. Yet here we are." She circled around him, taking readings with a small device. "Tell me, human, what is your educational background?" "I fix things," Jihoon said. "Learned mostly by taking stuff apart and putting it back together. No formal training. No advanced degrees. High school. Some technical courses. But mostly I just figure things out as I go." Soo-young looked horrified. "You impregnated my daughter with no formal education?" "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds pretty bad," Jihoon admitted. "But I did save her life first." Young-ho, Nari's younger brother, entered wearing a military uniform covered in badges and honors. He was clearly expecting to intimidate the primitive human, but stopped short when he saw Jihoon calmly examining a floating sculpture. "How does this work?" Jihoon asked, reaching toward the glowing object. "Don't touch that," Young-ho snapped. "It's a gravity matrix worth more than your entire planet's economy." "Sorry," Jihoon said, but he didn't pull his hand back. "It's just the field generators are so small. We're still using massive installations for gravity control. This is really elegant." Despite himself, Young-ho found himself explaining the technology. Jihoon asked smart questions and made observations that showed he understood the principles, even if he lacked the advanced materials to build similar devices. The dinner that followed was a disaster of epic proportions. The Velthari dining chamber was a work of art, with food that looked more like jewelry than something edible. Everything was precisely arranged and meant to be consumed in a specific order with particular utensils. Jihoon tried to follow along, but human hands weren't designed for the delicate Velthari eating implements. After watching him struggle for several minutes, he gave up and used his fingers. The shocked silence that followed was broken only by Hyunwoo's disgusted sigh. "Barbaric," he muttered. "Sorry," Jihoon said, wiping his hands on his napkin. "Where I come from, we care more about the food than the ceremony." "Where you come from," Soo-young said coldly. "They apparently don't care about civilization at all." "That's not fair," Nari said quietly. "Fair?" Hyunwoo's voice rose. "What's not fair is this creature corrupting our family line with his primitive genetics." "This creature," Jihoon said, his own voice getting harder, "risked his life to save your daughter when all your advanced technology couldn't help her." The argument was interrupted by a loud crash from somewhere in the house. Emergency lights began flashing, and a voice announced that the spire's position control system had failed. Without it, the floating home would crash into the city below. "How long until impact?" Hyunwoo demanded. 17 minutes, the house computer replied. "Repair crews have been notified but cannot arrive in time." Soo-young was already at a control panel, her fingers flying over holographic displays. "The quantum stabilizers are completely offline. We need replacement components that we don't have. Can we evacuate?" Young-ho asked. "Not enough time. The transport platforms are on the other side of the city." While the Velthari family argued about protocols and procedures, Jihoon was already moving. He found the maintenance access and started pulling panels off the walls. "What are you doing?" Soo-young demanded. "Fixing your house," Jihoon said, disappearing into the access tunnel. For the next 15 minutes, the sounds of human engineering echoed through the elegant spire. Banging, cursing, and the occasional small explosion. The Velthari family stood in their perfect dining room, listening to their beautiful home being torn apart by a primitive alien. 10 minutes to impact, the computer announced. "Whatever he's doing, it's not working," Hyunwoo said. Then, suddenly, the emergency light stopped flashing. The gentle hum of the position control system resumed. The spire stabilized, floating peacefully once again. Jihoon emerged from the access tunnel covered in dust and glowing coolant fluid. In his hands were a dinner fork, 2 decorative crystals, and what looked like part of a communication device. "Temporary fix," he said, setting the improvised components on the dining table. "You'll need proper parts eventually, but this should hold for a few weeks." The family stared at him in silence. Their perfect home had been saved by kitchen utensils and spare parts. "How?" So Young whispered. "Your stabilizers work on the same principle as our mining equipment, just smaller and more efficient. When the quantum field collapsed, I rerouted power through the emergency systems and used these crystals to focus the beam. The fork makes a pretty good conductor if you know how to modify it." Elder Sunwoo, Hyunwoo's father, had been silent throughout the dinner. Now the ancient Velthari spoke for the first time. "In 3 centuries of life," he said slowly, "I have never seen anything like that. You saved our family with eating utensils and jewelry." "I told you he was special," Nari said, moving to stand beside Jihoon. Young-ho was examining the improvised repair, his military engineer's training helping him understand what Jihoon had accomplished. "This shouldn't work," he said. "The power requirements alone should have fried the whole system." "Human engineering," Jihoon said with a grin. "We specialize in making things work when they shouldn't." The rest of the evening was different. Hyunwoo was still cold and disapproving, but there was a new respect in his eyes. So Young bombarded Jihoon with questions about human technology and problem-solving methods. Young-ho actually smiled when Jihoon described some of the more creative repairs he'd made on mining ships. As the family prepared for bed, Elder Sunwoo pulled Jihoon aside. "The trials begin tomorrow," the old Velthari said. "They will try to break you. Not just your body, but your spirit. They want you to fail. Why are you telling me this? Because in one evening you have shown me more ingenuity and courage than I've seen in decades of Velthari society. We have become too focused on perfection, and in doing so we've forgotten how to adapt." He looked toward Nari's room. "My great-grandchild will need both human creativity and Velthari knowledge to survive in this galaxy. Perhaps it's time our people learned from yours." "Maybe we can learn from each other," Jihoon suggested. "Perhaps," the elder smiled. "Now go rest. Tomorrow you face tests designed to prove you're not worthy of my great-granddaughter. I have a feeling they're going to be very surprised." As Jihoon settled into his room, he could hear Nari arguing with her parents through the crystal walls. They were speaking in Velthari, but the tone was clear. They still weren't happy about the situation, but Young-ho had helped him repair a secondary system after dinner. So Young had actually complimented his solution to the stabilizer problem, and Elder Sunwoo seemed genuinely interested in human perspectives. It wasn't acceptance yet, but it was a start. Tomorrow would bring the real test. The trial chamber was older than human civilization. Carved from a single piece of crystal deep beneath Ethros Prime, it had witnessed the testing of hundreds of species over thousands of years. None had ever passed all 5 trials. Master Kyung-ho, the trial coordinator, explained the rules to the gathered observers. Representatives from across the Velthari Empire had come to watch the human fail. Admiral Unji sat in the front row, her face showing barely contained disgust. "The trials of worthiness test 5 essential qualities," Kyung-ho announced. "Logic, technological mastery, cultural refinement, physical endurance, and emotional control. Failure in any area results in immediate termination of the testing." Jihoon stood in the center of the chamber, trying not to think about how many beings had died where he was standing. Nari watched from the family section, her hands resting on her still flat stomach. "Let's get started," Jihoon said. The logic maze materialized around him, a 3-dimensional puzzle of light and mathematics. The goal was to navigate from the center to the exit using pure logical deduction. Most Velthari took hours to complete it, following careful step-by-step analysis. Jihoon studied the maze for exactly 30 seconds, then started running. "What is he doing?" Admiral Unji demanded. Instead of calculating each move, Jihoon was following patterns. His human brain, evolved for quick decisions and pattern recognition, saw shortcuts that logical analysis would miss. Where a Velthari would carefully map every path, Jihoon made intuitive leaps. He reached the exit in 12 minutes, setting a new record. "Impossible," muttered one of the observers. "He didn't follow proper methodology." "He reached the correct destination," Master Kyung-ho said neutrally. "The trial is passed." The technology trial brought Jihoon to a massive workshop filled with advanced Velthari equipment. His task was to repair a damaged starship drive using only the tools provided. Velthari observers watched as Jihoon ignored most of the sophisticated diagnostic equipment, and went straight to the physical components. He pulled off access panels, sniffed at connections, and actually tasted a piece of crystalline circuitry. "He's going to contaminate the entire system," someone whispered, but Ji-hoon's hands-on approach was revealing problems that the sensors couldn't detect. A hairline crack in a quantum processor, a loose connection that registered as functional but was causing power fluctuations, corrosion on a supposedly perfect crystal matrix. Instead of replacing the damaged parts with expensive spares, Ji-hoon repaired them. He used a sonic drill to weld the crack, reinforced the loose connection with wire salvaged from a broken tool, and cleaned the corrosion with solvent from a maintenance kit. The drive hummed to life, running at 102% efficiency. "That's impossible," an engineer in the audience said. "Those parts were beyond repair." "Human engineering," Ji-hoon said with a shrug. "We don't like throwing things away." The cultural refinement trial nearly ended his chances. Ji-hoon was expected to compose poetry in ancient Velthari, demonstrate understanding of classical philosophy, and perform a traditional dance that required decades of study. His poetry was terrible. His philosophy answers showed complete ignorance of Velthari thought, and his attempt at the ceremonial dance looked more like a seizure than art, the observers began, murmuring about failure when Master Kyung-ho raised his hand for silence. "The trial requires demonstration of cultural understanding," he said. "Perhaps the candidate would like to share something from his own culture?" Ji-hoon thought for a moment, then started talking about his grandfather. "He fought in the water wars on Earth," Ji-hoon said. "Not because he wanted to, but because his family needed clean water to survive. He lost his leg in the fighting, but he made it home. He taught me that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right even when you are scared." He talked about human values, about loyalty to family and friends, about never giving up when people you love are counting on you, about the willingness to sacrifice for others, even strangers. "We don't have perfect poetry or ancient wisdom," he concluded, "but we have each other. When things get tough, humans don't calculate the odds. We ask who needs help, and then we help them." The chamber was completely silent when he finished. Even Admiral Yoonji looked thoughtful. "Cultural understanding demonstrated," Master Kyung-ho announced. Trial passed. The physical endurance trial was designed for Velthari physiology. Ji-hoon had to navigate an obstacle course while subjected to gravity, 3 times Velthari normal, temperature extremes that should have killed him, and atmospheric pressure that made breathing nearly impossible. The course was meant to take 6 hours. Most candidates collapsed within 2. Ji-hoon made it 4 hours before his body started shutting down. His human adaptability kept him going longer than any non-Velthari had ever managed. But the punishment was beyond what any organism should endure. With 1 hour left and barely conscious, he collapsed just 20 meters from the finish line. The observers leaned forward. Finally, the primitive human had reached his limits. That's when Nari started screaming. "She's in labor," someone shouted. "The baby's coming early." In the trial chamber, Ji-hoon heard her cry out. Without thinking, he forced himself to his feet. The 20 meters to the finish line had been impossible a moment before. Now, with Nari in danger, he ran. He completed the course and immediately demanded to be taken to the medical facility. "The emotional control trial must be completed first," Master Kyung-ho said. "Then let's do it," Ji-hoon snapped. The final trial was simple in concept, impossible in execution. Ji-hoon had to maintain complete emotional calm while subjected to every psychological pressure the Velthari could devise. Images of loved ones in danger, sounds of suffering, personal attacks designed to trigger anger, fear, and despair. Velthari candidates meditated for years to prepare for this trial. Emotional control was the foundation of their entire society. Ji-hoon lasted exactly 30 seconds before losing control completely. But instead of the anger or fear the trial was designed to provoke, he showed something else entirely. Love. Desperate, protective, overwhelming love for Nari and their unborn child. "Stop the trial," he said, tears streaming down his face. "I don't care about passing anymore. I need to be with her." "You have failed," Admiral Yoonji announced with satisfaction. "Emotional control is essential for—" "No," interrupted Elder Sunwoo from the observers section. The ancient Velthari stood slowly, his voice carrying across the chamber. "He has not failed. He has shown us something we had forgotten. The elder walked to the center of the chamber, standing beside Jihoon. "For 300 years, we have prized emotional control above all else," he said. "We have become cold, isolated, perfect in our logic, and empty in our hearts. This human shows us that emotion is not weakness. It is strength. The willingness to sacrifice everything for those we love is the highest form of courage." Jiwan, a young Velthari in the audience, stood up. "I agree," she said. "We have watched this human save our trial coordinator's family home, complete impossible trials through sheer determination, and now abandon his own success to help someone he loves. How is this not worthy behavior?" Other young Velthari began standing, voicing their agreement. The chamber filled with voices as 3 centuries of emotional suppression began to crack. Master Kyungho looked around the chaotic chamber, then at his ancient rulebooks. "The candidate has passed 4 of 5 trials," he announced. "But the 5th trial has revealed something unexpected. The question is not whether humans can control their emotions. The question is whether we have been measuring worthiness incorrectly." "This is ridiculous," Admiral Yunji protested. "Emotional outbursts cannot be considered." "Maybe they should be," Young-ho said, stepping forward from the family section. "I've spent 1 evening with this human, and he's already taught me more about courage and loyalty than years of military training." The trial ended not with a clear pass or fail, but with the Velthari Empire in the middle of its first philosophical crisis in centuries. While the council debated the meaning of worthiness, Jihoon was finally allowed to go to Nari. He found her in the medical bay, pale but smiling, holding a tiny baby with black eyes and brown skin. "Meet Minho," she said softly. "Our son, is he okay?" "Are you okay?" "We're perfect," she said. "Both of us." As Jihoon held his son for the first time, Master Kyungho entered the medical bay. "The council has reached a decision," he said. "Your performance in the trials has raised questions about our understanding of worthiness that will take years to fully explore. In the meantime, you have been granted provisional status. You and your family are under the protection of Velthari law." "What does that mean?" "It means," said Elder Sunwoo, appearing in the doorway, "that you have time to prove that love is stronger than logic, and we have time to learn what we've been missing." Outside the medical bay, the Velthari Empire was changing. The trials had been broadcast across their space, and young Velthari everywhere were questioning everything they'd been taught about emotion, worthiness, and what it meant to be truly civilized. It would take time, but Jihoon had given them something they'd lost long ago. He'd given them hope. 5 years had passed since baby Minho changed the galaxy forever. The crystal spire that had once been just Nari's family home was now the center of the most important diplomatic mission in Velthari history. Ambassador Jamin, the first official human representative to the Velthari Empire, was reviewing reports in his office when a small voice interrupted him. "Uncle Jamin, can you fix my toy?" Minho stood in the doorway holding a broken Velthari learning device. At 5 years old, he was already showing the best traits of both species. His human curiosity led him to take everything apart, while his Velthari intelligence helped him understand how complex systems worked. "What happened to it?" Jamin asked, setting down his paperwork. "I wanted to see how it makes the hologram," Minho said seriously. "But now it won't turn on." Jamin smiled as he examined the device. Minho's approach to learning was purely human. Hands-on, experimental, and occasionally destructive. But his ability to absorb and process information was definitely Velthari. "Your father could fix this in minutes," Jamin said. "Dad's in a meeting with the council," Minho replied. "He's trying to convince them to let the Zorathi people take the trials." The Zorathi were the 3rd species to request evaluation for civilization status since Jihoon's success. The first had been the Kellen Collective, followed by the independent Rex clans. Both had passed modified versions of the trials, forcing the Velthari to completely restructure their understanding of intelligence and worthiness. "And where's your mom?" "Teaching the new students," Minho said proudly. "She has 12 humans in her xenobiology class now." The cultural exchange program had been Nari's idea. Young humans and Velthari studying together, learning from each other's perspectives. The results had exceeded everyone's expectations. Human creativity combined with Velthari knowledge was producing innovations that neither species could achieve alone. As Jamin worked on the toy, Hyunwoo entered the office. Nari's father had changed dramatically over the years. The cold, formal High Arbiter had become a doting grandfather, who actually smiled when Minho was around. Grandfather. Minho ran to hug the tall Velthari. Uncle Jamin is fixing my scanner. Did you break another one? Hyunwoo asked with mock sternness. That's the third this month. I'm learning, Minho said defensively. Dad says learning means making mistakes. Your father is wise, Hyunwoo agreed. Though perhaps we should invest in sturdier toys. The relationship between Ji-hoon and Hyunwoo had been rocky at first, but mutual respect had grown over time. Hyunwoo had come to appreciate human directness and problem-solving abilities, while Ji-hoon had learned to value Velthari patience and long-term thinking. The council meeting is finished, Hyunwoo reported. The Zorathi have been approved for evaluation. That's great news, Jamin said. What changed their minds? Hajun's presentation was very convincing. He showed how species diversity strengthens the empire rather than weakening it. Hajun had been one of the young Velthari inspired by Ji-hoon's trials. He'd formed a political movement advocating for galactic inclusion and emotional acceptance. His ideas were gaining support among younger generations across Velthari space. Ji-hoon and Nari arrived home as the suns were setting. Minho immediately ran to his father demanding to show off his newly repaired toy. Look, Dad. Uncle Jamin fixed it and now I understand how the projection matrix works. That's great, buddy, Ji-hoon said, lifting his son up. But remember what we talked about asking permission before taking things apart? I forgot, Minho said sheepishly. He gets that from you, Nari told Ji-hoon with a smile. The curiosity and the selective memory about rules. They gathered for dinner on the family terrace, looking out over the crystal city. The view never got old, though Ji-hoon sometimes missed the rough beauty of Earth's mountains and oceans. Tell me about the Zorathi, Nari said as they ate. Interesting species, Ji-hoon replied. They're collective thinkers like a hive mind, but each individual maintains their own personality. The council was worried about how to evaluate group consciousness, but I think we can adapt the trials. You think they'll pass? I think they'll surprise everyone just like we did. Soo-young joined them for dessert carrying a datapad full of research notes. Nari's mother had become fascinated by human genetics and was leading several studies on hybrid development. Minho's latest tests are remarkable, she announced. His brain shows integration patterns we've never seen before. He's developing cognitive pathways that combine human intuitive processing with Velthari analytical structures. In plain language, Mom, he's going to be smarter than both of us, Soo-young said with pride. And more creative than traditional Velthari, more focused than typical humans. As long as he's happy, Ji-hoon said. That's all that matters. Happy, Soo-young repeated thoughtfully. 5 years ago I would have said happiness was irrelevant. Now I understand it's the foundation of everything else. That evening, after Minho was asleep, Ji-hoon and Nari walked through the crystal gardens. The plants grew in patterns of light, responding to touch and emotion. It was one of the few places where Velthari technology felt truly magical, rather than just advanced. Do you ever regret it? Nari asked. Leaving your old life behind? Never, Ji-hoon said immediately. Do you regret choosing me over your people's approval? I didn't choose you over my people, she said. I chose love over fear. My people are learning to make the same choice. They found Elder Sunwoo sitting by the memory fountain, a device that projected holographic records of family history. He was watching images of Minho's first steps, his first words in both human English and Velthari. He is the future, the old Velthari said as they approached, not just of our families but of the galaxy itself. That's a lot of pressure for a 5-year-old, Ji-hoon said. Not pressure, Elder Sunwoo corrected. Hope. For 3,000 years our species have lived in isolation, each believing they were superior to all others. Your son proves that cooperation creates something greater than any of us could achieve alone. A communication alert interrupted their conversation. Captain Dongmin's face appeared in the holographic display, grinning from the bridge of his new ship. Ji-hoon. Nari, hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Dongmin, how's the new command treating you? Can't complain about being captain of the first human Velthari joint exploration vessel. Dongmin laughed. We're heading out to survey the Andorian Nebula next week. Mixed crew of 30 humans and 20 Velthari. Should be interesting. The joint exploration program was another result of the growing cooperation between the species. Human adaptability and Velthari technology were proving to be an unbeatable combination for deep space exploration. Any word from Earth? Nari asked. President Chen sends her regards. The terraforming project on New Sol is ahead of schedule, thanks to Velthari atmospheric processors, and the technology exchange program is producing some amazing innovations. After ending the call, they returned to the house to find Minho awake and looking out his bedroom window at the stars. Dad, why are there so many different kinds of people in the galaxy? He asked. Ji-hoon sat on the edge of his son's bed thinking about how to answer. Because difference makes us stronger, he said finally. Each species sees the universe in a different way. When we share those perspectives, we all learn something new. Like how you see patterns and Mom sees details. Exactly like that. Your human side gives you curiosity and creativity. Your Velthari side gives you intelligence and patience. Together they make you special. Will I meet other kinds of people? Lots of them, Nari said from the doorway. The galaxy is full of amazing species. Some think with their whole group like the Zorathi. Others live in the deep ocean and communicate with light. There are beings made of energy and others made of living crystal. And they're all going to want to meet you, Ji-hoon added, because you represent what's possible when different people work together. As they tucked Minho back into bed, he asked one more question. Will they like me? Some will, some won't, Ji-hoon said honestly. But that's okay. You don't need everyone to like you. You just need to be yourself and treat others with respect. And remember, Nari added, you're never alone. You have family who loves you no matter what. Later that night, as Ji-hoon and Nari prepared for bed, they received word that 3 more species had submitted requests for civilization evaluation. The Velthari Empire was transforming from an isolated realm of perfection into a diverse alliance of cooperation. Sometimes I can't believe how much has changed, Nari said. You know what hasn't changed? Ji-hoon replied, pulling her close. How I feel about you. That first day on your damaged ship, I knew you were special. I just didn't know you were going to change the galaxy. We changed it, she corrected. Together. Outside their window, Ethros Prime glowed in the darkness, its crystal spires reaching toward the stars. Somewhere in those towers, young Velthari were learning human languages and customs. In distant human colonies, children were studying Velthari science and philosophy. The galaxy was becoming smaller, more connected, more unified. And it had all started with one human engineer who refused to leave someone behind, and one Velthari scientist who chose love over prejudice. In his bedroom down the hall, Minho dreamed of distant worlds and alien friends, unaware that he was living proof.